So hello everybody. Hello Jose. Hello Jordan for this first
Hello.
time in the community of call of Kubewarden. So I'm setting already the agenda and let's see what do we have in the agenda. We have the topic of maybe making a quick introduction to tell why we are doing office hours. If I may, then folks, I would start with it. So
Sure.
we are right now no, on CNCF, which means that we want to engage more with the community, and this is a perfect way of doing it. We can just share topics with the community, get ideas from the community. If you have bugs or if you have feature requests that you would like to share with us, and you want like a normal one-to-one conversation, a real-time one, just please join us, and that's what we're here for. Also, we're here to celebrate Kubewarden and what we accomplished. So I hope that we do that today a bit. And maybe with that is good enough. Do you guys have any other things to add?
No, that's perfect.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we
sounds good.
covered it.
Then let's go with it. For starters, we have the latest external contributions that we had in Kubewarden. This last week, so to speak, we had some good contributions from external contributors that are not part of the maintainers or usual developers in the Kubewarden team, and they were super nice, to be honest. And all of them have already gotten into the latest release, so they are already in production. The first one
Yeah,
that we
that's
have in the list, yeah,
no, I
yeah,
was just say thank you and that's awesome.
yeah, it's quite cool. It's quite cool, I have to say. The first one is from Nicolas Lamirault, and he had a PR for adding Kubernetes annotations and recommended labels, no, to all the resources that we ship. And the recommended labels actually was a good idea. Let me just open it super fast, the PR. And it brings us quite the big change. And apart from the normal additional labels and so on that you would like to add to your resources, maybe because you are tagging them specifically for your specific team at work and so on, you have the recommended labels, which are nice. If I can find them, for example, they were somewhere here. Yeah, maybe not here, but you have the recommended labels that allow you to also um, filter and so on with the filtering possibilities of Kubewarden, which is super nice. Apart from that, on the second one we have Mauren Berti contribution, which is also super nice. We had a bug. It was a simple and somewhat silly bug, but it was there. And it's that when you define the cluster admission policies and admission policies that we normally use for defining the policies, these are CRDs, the spec.rules of the CRDs could be misconstructed and be empty, for example. And this bug was fixed by Mauren, by this PR. And this meant that every time that one creates or updates a cluster admission policy or admission policy, everything is checked, and we are sure that we don't have any problems there. And we are sure that the cluster admission policies and admission policies are actually targeting something in specific. This is not as simple as it can be now, because sometimes, for example, the pods resources come from the core API group, which, if I remember, it means that the API group is empty because it's understood that it's the core group, and so on and so forth. And this also will improve things for the Kubewarden UI that we will see later on by Jordan. And last but not least, we have Bastian Hofmann, that made a homebrew formula for Kwctl, which is super cool. Are you guys users of Mac? I have to say.
No, but
I'd say I am.
but I really like it. This contribution is pretty cool.
We have some colleagues that really are more into Mac, but yeah, this is quite cool, I have to say. Just having the Kwctl package and being shipped for Mac, but if I understand, Homebrew can be also used for Linux. I have not used it, and this is only for Mac. It doesn't have the well, now I wonder. Maybe this actually works also for Linux. But yeah.
Oh, we'll have to test it out then.
Yeah, me too, to be honest.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah. And we can expect more issues than now. It's easier to install Kwctl.
Yeah, I agree. I hope that they are feature requests instead of bugs. Okay, so
Yeah, fair enough.
that means that we are done with the external contributions for today, and then we can go to, for example, the Kubewarden UI walkthrough from Jordan. So I will lead you. I will stop sharing then.
Okay.
If I know how to.
See. Had to find my browser. Okay, can you see this all right?
Yes.
Okay, well, hello, I'm Jordan. I'm a UI engineer on the Rancher dashboard team, but I'm also the developer behind the Kubewarden UI. And the Kubewarden UI at the moment is an extension of Rancher Manager, meaning you'll need Rancher instance running on your cluster to use it. In the future, we plan on this being standalone, but I'll show you what it is for now. But with it being an extension, that provides us the ability to have all of the code in its own repository, which you can see under here under the Kubewarden organization rather than under the Rancher organization. And it is actually just a Vue.js app packaged into a Helm chart, which just provides a simple mechanism for the dashboard to consume it and actually add it. So I've taken the liberty of installing the extension just to spare you the boring details. And this is what you would be presented with after you install it. So we have a few new items here on the side navigation. Under this Kubewarden directory, we have the dashboard itself, policy servers, cluster admission policies, and admission policies. From the dashboard, you get a kind of an overview of what's going on in your Kubewarden resource. So you can see the version of the Kubewarden controller here. You have your policy servers, admission policies, and cluster admission policies listed here. You can see I have one policy server that isn't running very well. 3 admission policies, 2 are in protect mode, 1 in monitor, and same for cluster admission policies. So from here, I can just select policy servers and go straight to my list of policy servers. And here you would be presented with a list. You can create new policy servers from here. I'm just going to look at this policy server, which was actually provided by the Kubewarden defaults Helm chart. And at a glance, you can see all of your policies by status. So I have 9 active policies, 0 pending. And if you have tracing enabled with Jaeger, you can see your validations. So I have 38 denied validations recently. And if I had any mutated, they would show up here. But you can get a glance at all of your policies that are being validated by this policy server. So I have these 3 admission policies and these cluster admission policies, which are also provided by that Kubewarden defaults. If you have metrics installed, you would have this here. This utilizes the monitoring app that's provided by Rancher itself, and you have to kind of add the config map, which adds the dashboard that we've created outside of that. But I haven't done that here. And this, you also have a tracing tab. So as you can see, I have a lot of traces going on here for some things that happened. For instance, these monitor traces. Let's see, we see this monitored, it would have allowed, but I just want to see the protect because those are most important. So let's see, from here you can see, oh, I tried to create a pod and I was missing a label, so it denied that request. Other than that, if you want, you can look at the config of your policy server, and you also have the ability to change the config, which it kind of goes into a lot of things, but so say for instance, I needed to create a new policy server, I can go back to the policy server list page and just create. You can add your own image. So, but from here, I'm just using the Kubewarden default policy server. You can add labels and annotations. You can have a verification config. And you can also add container registry settings. So you can add insecure sources, and you can also add source authorities for your policy server. And let's see. So from here, let's look at, say, cluster admission policies. This is just a list of all of mine. This one came from the Kubewarden defaults Helm chart. It has the traces that are tied to just this policy itself. So this one is in monitor mode, so it can't actually deny anything, but it's still going to be looking for this. And I can also change the config from here, where you can just look at it. And here we just have the rules and the settings in place that are already here. So I guess I'll start. Maybe I will create a policy just to show. And here, when I go to create a policy, we actually fetch a list of policies that the Kubewarden team has implemented into Artifact Hub. So this does a fetch from the Artifact Hub API and grabs all the information from there. And let's say I want to, I don't know, maybe stop a load balancer from being created. So I'll select this service resource to filter. There's that. It comes up with the README for the chart. If the policy needs some settings, that would be explained here. And then I'll just go into the values. So I'm going to select the namespace I want this to be under, select a local, select a policy server I want to validate with, choose mutating. I'm going to keep it in protect mode so it actually works. Then I have to add some rules. API group is all to services, this version. And I'm going to choose all operation types. Okay, now that has been created. While that's pending, we can go back to the policy server page. You can see that's still pending as well there. That shows up here. You can also view from here. Okay, so it may take about a minute for this to go, but once it's ready, I'll actually go and create a load balancer real quick. Apologize for the my slow instance here.
This is your local instance, no? On development machine.
Yeah, it is. So maybe if I had a more powerful machine, this might work a bit quicker. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention is on policy servers, you are able to view the logs from the pod itself. So if we go in here, we can see, oh, we can actually see, it looks like it's all working now.
Yep, I think it's finished.
Yep, it is finished.
2 minutes should be faster in a real cluster.
It would be, yeah. All right, so I'm just going to create a load balancer in my local namespace. And let's see. Oh, that has been denied as a load balancer are not allowed, which is exactly what I wanted. You can go into the policy server and view the trace there. Shows up here. And you could also do that straight from the detail page of that policy. And I think with that, that concludes my demo.
That's great, I have to say. I wondered if I was thinking about some questions to ask you, but I think it's quite well covered. No, it's a nice sneak and peek on the upcoming Kubewarden UI, and yeah, we hope that it's ready super soon.
Yes, it will be.
Do you guys have any other pointers now that we are with the UI? I see that Fabian.
Yeah. Sorry for joining a bit late. I don't know if you already said that. So right now, this is a UI that integrates inside of Rancher Manager, the open source project. But we plan to make it work also as a standalone UI that works outside of Rancher Manager. I don't know if you said that.
Yeah, that is the plan. I did mention it before, but
sorry.
Definitely have to hamper on it because it's an important feature that we will be working on.
Yeah. And also what we want to address probably before the first release is when you went into the settings of a policy and you had to tune some configuration details about the load balancer policy, like npeak the groups of resources and all of that. All this information is already inside of the policy done by the policy author. We just want to make that available to the UI so that the user finds all this information pre-filled and they don't have to enter that manually.
Yeah, if we can cut the the necessary requirements for the user, I think it'll make a much better user experience for sure.
Yeah, but cool stuff, Jordan. Thanks for the demo.
Yeah, thank you.
And Flavio, now that we have you, on the agenda we are now showcasing things that we have upcoming, and I was thinking about the background scan, for example. We can talk about right now about the background scan, or maybe the timeout protection, whatever you feel.
We can start with the background scan if you want, and yeah, feel free to introduce that. I mean,
oh yeah. So we have this upcoming major feature which introduces a background scan. So right now, as you can see, when we make changes to resources, we create, delete, update, and so on, those changes get picked up by the admission controller of Kubewarden, and that would be when Kubewarden would stop or would reject that operation. But what happens when you already have a cluster running, and then you want to put Kubewarden on top? Those resources are already there, so it doesn't make much sense to follow the same approach. Or what happens if you just want to have Kubewarden deployed and then you deploy your resources and you keep having a continuous log and feedback loop on what's the status of the security of the cluster? Well, that's the background scan. We are implementing that right now, and the idea is just to have a background scan that creates fake operations that are not going to be applied on the cluster, and with those things correctly created, we get some feedback on the resources. And then the other part of this would be the how do we report this to the users or whatever tool that you are using in conjunction with Kubewarden. We do that by providing policy reports, the CRD policy report, and that comes from the security and the policy SIG groups of Kubewarden. So we are super happy that they work on that, and we will provide those. So then what happens for the user is that you just subscribe to those policy reports, maybe with some tooling, or you look at the state of those policy reports, and there it would be listed all the changes, all the possible problems that your current resources in the cluster would have. That would be it, no? More or less.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's the goal of it. So we are currently working on that, and yeah, this is one is going to come up to be published, I think, in the next months. Yeah.
I hope that I didn't forget anything. This is going to introduce a new audit checker deployment, no? And if you're interested in this in more detail or want to contribute or whatever, as usual, Kubewarden develops everything in the open. So there's our GitHub resources, our GitHub repositories and so on. And we have an RFC document that lists all the implementation details.
Yeah, maybe we can drop a link to the RFC inside of the minutes of the meeting. That would be great.
Okay, I can do that. Would you like to have a go with the timeout protection, for example?
Yeah. So this is a feature that has already landed into the main branch of Policy Server, but is not yet released. We are going to release it, I guess, maybe in the next 2 weeks. We are going to tag a new version of the Kubewarden stack, which includes this feature plus other fixes. So the idea behind this is to basically prevent policies that have bugs from taking down a policy server. So some background explanation. So when you write a policy with Kubewarden, you can decide to use either a traditional programming language like Go, Rust, whatsoever, or you can use a query language like Rego. Traditional programming languages, they are Turing complete, so you can have a more complex set of operation. You can do loops, you can have branch conditions and all this kind of stuff. With Rego, you don't have it because it's not a Turing complete language. There are advantages and disadvantages on both sides, but and you have to be aware of those. One of the disadvantages of using a Turing complete language is that maybe the developer who is writing the policy made a mistake, and under certain circumstances, you can end up having, for example, an infinite loop. So you have your policy that keeps running and never exits, and so there is never, an evaluation result coming out of it. Or maybe it could be using maybe some mutexes. I don't know why it would be doing that, honestly, but you can end up having a deadlock. Or you could be running some code which is poorly written or is doing too heavy computation in some circumstances, and so the evaluation completes but it takes a long time to finish that. And so what we did is to introduce this feature that basically terminates the execution of a WebAssembly policy, of one of our policies, after some time has elapsed. And that allows us to prevent, an endless loop from, consuming all the resources of policy server. What is even more important is that, the policy server has a limited amount of resources that can be used in order to evaluate the admission requests coming from the policies from the Kubernetes API server. And so if you have one bugged policy that enters an endless loop, and there are many requests that are triggering the execution of this bugged policy, your policy server will be stuck waiting for answers and will not have a computational power to provide any answer. This is basically a denial of service attack against the policy server, which can have bad effects on the whole cluster depending on how you configured your policies inside of Kubernetes. And so with this feature, we're going to prevent that from happening. It's going to be enabled by default. We're going to block the execution of a policy after 2 seconds. This is a threshold that can be configured by the end user through a setting. And we already have some documentation that explains this feature, and especially explains that together with another timeout feature that is already bundled inside of Kubernetes, which is the webhook timeout. So Kubewarden is working as a dynamic admission controller of a policy server, which means that under the hood, the API server is making an HTTP request to the policy server, and this HTTP request as a timeout. And by default, Kubernetes will wait for an answer for 10 seconds. And after this time is gone, it will assume that there was a failure and will accept or reject the request based on the failure policy of the specific policy that it was trying to reach out to. So this is a feature of Kubernetes that is still around. And we also added this second timeout inside of Kubewarden. It's not, these are complementary features because, again, it's really important that policy server doesn't enter this denial of service state. And so that's why we enable this feature by default. And yeah, there are some limitations. However, we cannot catch any kind of. There are some corner cases, basically, of like endless loops, and not really endless loops, but like if your policy is invoking a sleep function, like the sleep function of 10 seconds, we're not yet able to detect that, because this is because how things work underneath inside the WebAssembly. I don't want to bother you with all the details, but if you are interested, we can definitely do a follow-up on that. Yeah, we plan to address that in the future releases. So this is a first iteration, but yeah, that's pretty important. If you're writing something using Rego on the other end, you are not affected by this kind of scenarios, because there is less power when writing less powerful semantics when writing a Rego expression, and so you don't have this kind of side effects.
That sounds super useful. I remember, Flavio, at some point we needed to do some kind of like upstream contributions. It was a bit ago before vacation, so I've forgotten. And I wondered which ones were those.
So we had to do quite some contribution inside of WAPC, which is a project that we are using in order to exchange information between WebAssembly host, so a program running on your computer, and a WebAssembly program. And so WAPC didn't have the concept of interrupting a long-running WebAssembly process. And so we had to introduce all these concepts inside of WAPC. Everything is built on top of a feature that is provided by the WebAssembly runtime called wasmtime. So we're leveraging that. And to be honest, I also found some corner cases around the WAPC guest that I need to fix, because when a WebAssembly module, when a policy is interrupted, if you try to reuse the same policy again, there are some leftovers inside of the WebAssembly state that might cause unwanted side effects. So we prevented that, because basically anytime we interrupt a policy, we just reset that and start with a fresh state. But there are some tiny things that could be fixed inside of WAPC to prevent that kind of situation for other people who don't want to do a reset. We prefer to stay on the safe side. So we do a reset, and we will keep doing a reset. But for the ones who don't want to do it because they actually know what they're doing, there are some minor things that we can fix.
That sounds nice. Okay, then I suppose we go to the next point in the list. In this case, would be the reorg of the docs in Kubewarden. That's docs kubewarden.io. It's still ongoing, and stay tuned. That's more or less what we can say. We can say that we are not going to have any changes to the URLs, so that should be okay. Maybe for now, but so far we didn't have any need to do those things, so that's great. And we hope that it's more readable.
Yeah.
No, please.
The main idea is we have quite some contents over there, but they are a bit scattered. So I think that we started by writing documentation about how to code policies. So this is really well organized. And then we started to add information that are more targeted towards, operators and users, not policy authors. And these two personas that we have, they deserve to have the contents grouped the contents of the documentation grouped in a better way to make them more discoverable, easily accessible, and such. So we have a pull request open. Maybe you can provide a link to that. Inside of a pull request, there is also you will see a bot that provided a link to a live preview of a documentation website. And this is a first iteration toward, this reorganization of the contents. It's just about, grouping things better inside of a sidebar, shuffling a bit the entries inside of the sidebar. But if you have feedback about, the documentation website, please reach out to us on this GitHub issue, on the Slack channel, wherever you prefer. If you have if you don't like, how things are organized, if you struggle finding something, just let us know.
Yeah, that sounds quite on point. And now, last but not least, we have the release automation improvements. So, Jose, if you want to share something there, feel your voice.
Yeah, just to report to the community what we are doing, and this is not related to the features, but make our life easier and faster to release in that sense. So we started by adding the release drafter to create the changelog and remove the changelog file from the repos, then move towards just following our RFC about versioning. We then add automation scripts to automate everything, like the patch release and major and minor release, which is kind of different in scenarios. And that's what we are almost done. I'm finishing the major and minor release, and we hopefully have the full automated workflow in the next week or 2 weeks ahead. So that's all.
I have to say, it's a personal fan. I mean, I'm a personal fan of this. What's needed to then release? For example, if I'm just coding on policy server or controller, what do we need to do to make a full release? How many things do they need to be done?
Yeah, basically we just need to tag the components. For instance, if you need a patch release, which is the simpler workflow, you just patch the component that you want to release, and everything will happen magically, like releasing the component and then trigger the release of the Helm charts and everything. The only convoluted one is the major and minor release, because we need to keep sync between all the 3 major components, which Kwctl, controller, and policy server. In this case, you need to tag every single component manually, and then when all the tags are pushed, the Helm chart release will release the charts. But the only thing that us as maintainers need to do is tag the components, and everything should be done automatically. Yeah,
It's great. I have to say, it's great.
I like it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's it for the first community meeting. So, folks, see you around, and
We're going
enjoy.
to do that again in 1 month, right?
I think, yes, you're right. Yeah, good call. I was completely forgetting about that. So then see you again. Well, we see each other, but I suppose see you the ones at home in a month or so. Please, yeah, just as usual, check the Slack channel for Kubewarden in the Kubernetes server, for example, or check the blog. We have a blog, so if you go to kubewarden.io, you would find the blog there. And yeah, just give us a line, find us maybe in social networks if you want. Some of us are there, but yeah, just have a look at kubewarden.io.
Thanks. See you guys.
Thanks.
See you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.